Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Africa is second largest continent of the world with 54 states. The geo-economic importance and significance of Africa is increasing with each passing year, and it is being seen as continent of the future by the major powers. Pakistan has always maintained friendly relations with many African countries since independence. But when we look at the trade volume between Pakistan and African countries, it is very low. However, in 2013, Pakistan initiated its Look Africa policy. According to this policy, Pakistan would be enhancing connectivity with different African countries, and 10 important African countries were selected for this purpose. These countries include Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Sudan, Tanzania, Nigeria, Kenya, Senegal, Ethiopia, and South Africa. In today's program, we will discuss how Pakistan's relations with African countries have evolved over the years. We will also discuss and explore the prospects of connectivity between Pakistan and Africa. To discuss this and more, I'm joined in the studios by former Ambassador Ms. Naela Chohan. Welcome to the program. With her, we are joined as usual by Mr. Shehryar Khan, who is expert international affairs. Welcome to the program. And with him, we are joined online by Dr. Hasnain, Javed, who is an economist and senior analyst. Welcome to the program. So, Ambassador Naela, let me start with you. First of all, when we talk about Pakistan and relations between African countries, they have evolved over the years. But when we look at this recent development of Look Africa policy, you were involved in the negotiations when this policy was being formulated and drafted. So, what were the main objectives that Pakistan launched and initiated this policy?
Basically, as you said, Pakistan and Africa relations, African countries relate because it's a continent with many countries.
54 countries, of course.
Exactly. So, we have very strong foundation of our relationship since their independence and our independence. Subsequently, we have been working but not developing or encashing on the political goodwill between our Pakistan and this region. The Look Africa policy came because I was at that time Additional Foreign Secretary dealing with Middle East and Africa, and we thought that Africa was such a large continent and we already have such a strong political goodwill amongst the countries of that continent and Pakistan, that we need to encash it for the mutual benefit. So, we also started having diplomats from these countries, even those where we don't have a mission, to get training in our Foreign Service Academy, because we thought that this would be, they will become our ambassadors. Similarly, we have had since quite some time defense cooperation with a lot of these countries, and their soldiers, officers come and get training in our institutions, whether it's military academy or air force or different Navy. So, we needed to now institutionalize it
of course.
And consolidate all the work that was being done since our independence, but it was more like in silos. So, Look Africa policy was that the government should now start looking at it in an institutionalized manner.
Right. So, Mr. Shehryar, when we talk about this policy that was launched back in 2013, how do you view the progress of this policy so far?
Maryam, thank you for inviting me. And before we start off with the analysis, I would like to say that historically Africa as a continent, which is the second largest in the world, has been a victim of the global colonial project. So, that is one of the reasons why Africa has been historically riddled with poverty, economic uncertainty. There are also a lot of security issues. And historically, Northern Africa, if we talk about…
there are a lot of commonalities if we look at Pakistan and Africa. Obviously. Like there is a youth bulge going on in Africa, there is a youth bulge in Pakistan as well.
So, historically, Africa has been more dependent on the European countries for their trade needs. And as we know, because of the economic uncertainties in Africa, the products that are imported from Europe have historically been a very high cost. So it's a golden opportunity for Pakistan to basically, since Pakistan is also looking outwards, Africa is a good market for low cost products that Pakistan can basically replace that they're already getting from Europe. So historically, when it comes to Northern Africa, Pakistan has had like very good relations, for example, with Egypt, Algeria. If you look at Nigeria, we've had like good cooperation. If you look at East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, they also have like a historical Pakistani population. A lot of people don't know that a lot of people migrated during the British colonial era, and they basically started working in Kenya and Tanzania. So they basically relate themselves back with Pakistan.
Right.
So we have to like use these historical linkages and the goodwill that has been built throughout these years, and like start focusing on Africa as a market.
Right. Dr. Hasnain, when we talk about Look Africa policy, what are some key areas of cooperation between Pakistan and African countries?
There are actually, Africa is way too lucrative market. It is very unfortunate that till now we have not placed any policy. Look Africa was a good initiative, but unfortunately it was not been, create any dimension. If I talk about some major, dimensions about on the trade aspect, which is oil and natural gas, agriculture products, minerals and mine, textile, clothing, and other. So one of the most important and major area is with the total population of Africa is approximately is 1.32 billion, and 16.72% of the world populations inhabiting 54 countries. Africa is lucrative, of course, destination for the many, including Pakistan. But I would like to especially talk about the Pakistan pharmaceutical sector, which has been identified as an sunrise export sector of the country, and companies can set a sight of Africa aiming for the population of 1.2 recent billion people. So the main competition in the market of pharma in India and China. However, with the recent death caused by the Indian medicine in African region, Pakistan industry has a huge opportunity. Now I'm focusing on the huge concern, which has a huge opportunity and market to capture. Also, with the global pharmaceutical market are in flux due to the major restructuring in the term of both demand and supply. So this present Pakistan, with a unique opportunity, if the sector can take timely action, there is an opportunity to strategically enter the global off-patent drug market that will be worth about 7 billion USD dollar in a branded generic, and USD 381 billion in generic by 2025 if we start doing that. But then there is even greater potential for the vaccines in developing country for which Pakistan can capture, and we are all well aware of the potential of our food and textile industry. However, we need a strict action and implementation of the Look Africa policy, which has been much delayed. But one of the most important sector, one important thing and one most important initiative, I would like to ask the foreign affair to make the policy about the commercial consular deployed in Africa as soon as possible in the different region. Otherwise, our trade potential is not been, we cannot exploit that potential in a very better way. So there are many things.
Of course, there is a lot of potential when we talk about these areas of cooperation, but like Dr. Hasnain is mentioning about Ms. Naela, that this policy has not been as effective like we wanted. So what have been the challenges in implementation of these policies, because you were closely looking after and were part of the negotiations when this policy was being formulated?
There are many factors. A relationship is always two-sided. So you have to have a similar response from the other side as well. And I would often, and through your program even now, request our ambassadors of African countries who are based in Islamabad to also be more proactive in promoting trade between Pakistan and African countries. We had started this special training program for which we were giving them training in the Foreign Office Academy, because we thought that where we don't have embassies, these people will be our voice because they have lived there.
So, Ms. Naela, when we talk about Pakistan's relations with these African nations, how do you see these relations have evolved? Specifically, Pakistan's foreign policy has evolved over the years with regards to Africa.
Well, they have evolved very well. There is very strong affiliation, bonds of friendship. Also, there are many which we have similar faith with. Irrespective of that, we have similar culture. If you read in, Quran, there was mentioned that these were the people who were the first civilization. They are the most civilized people. It's the colonial mindset that has made them look as though they are less. They were always very civilized. When Islam was in threat, they went to Abyssinia to seek the support of an African country. Right. So there is a very deep bond which you can't express in words. How has it evolved? Actually, to be honest, we also have to put our house in order. I have always been telling our chambers of commerce that there should be a database with them. What are the things they want to export? Dr. Hasnain just mentioned, having commercial offices in these countries. It's easier said than done because it's a two-way traffic. We have to have data on what they have to sell, and they need to have data what we have to sell. And that mutuality of interest can then be translated into fortifying a relationship. So, I think that is the main impediment that and I would always tell my African friends also that you also should look Pakistan as we are looking. But now we have taken a step forward. We had this conference in which all these envoys were invited, and we said engage Africa. So that's a step forward that there should be.
So Look Africa has evolved into Engage Africa.
Engage Africa, so that you walk the talk.
Right, walk the talk. So when we talk about Mr. Shehryar, walk the talk, but there are some challenges that Pakistan is also facing, but African nations are also facing. How can Pakistan cooperate with these African countries to address these regional and global challenges?
So, Maryam, I agree with the ambassador, and we don't have like a lot of diplomatic presence in Africa. And up till now, we had like only 17 missions out of 54 African nations. This is changing, and now as Dr. Hasnain has also mentioned that we have opened a lot of trade wings in I think 6 more countries. And what the Ministry of Commerce and Trade did was they basically got on board local business leaders to basically take these roles, and they work very closely with the ambassadors in those countries to basically promote trade between Pakistan and African nations. So there's like a lot more to be done. There's like a lot of potential. There is like a lot of like trade happening on the eastward sides of Africa that we've like noted, especially when it comes to Kenya and Pakistan. There's like a historical trade volume. It's not optimal, but Pakistan imports a lot of tea from Kenya. Most of the tea that we consume in Pakistan comes from Kenya. In 2020 and 2021, over $500 million worth of tea was imported. It is going down, and the last 2 years it's like between 300 million. But most of our tea is like coming from there. Other than that, Pakistan is also has a lot of like digital cooperation going on with Kenya. A lot of people don't know that their national database is also being developed by NADRA.
Of course.
So,
that
like
is
a lot
a
of work
major
being done.
area of cooperation.
Yeah.
So, but there is a lot of potential when we talk about Pakistan and African countries' relations. We will be talking more about the trade volume, how could it be increased. When we come back, we will be taking a short break here, and when we come back, we will be discussing with Dr. Hasnain that the economic relations and the prospects of economic relations with Pakistan and Africa. Take a break. Back, we are talking about prospects of economic relations between Pakistan and Africa. So, Dr. Hasnain, when we talk about economic relations between Pakistan and Africa, what are the key areas of cooperation where there is a huge potential and we can cooperate in those areas?
Well, I just wanted to, before I answer this question, but I just wanted to request the Foreign Office their policies in terms of making and developing relationship with Africa, and they have never explored the business and trade behaviors, and never they explore in a way that we can get the benefit out of it. We must have to know about the unemployment rate. There is 8%, and the labor force participation rate is 62%, and the highest labor rate and the lowest wage rate is over there. So we have many potential. We would never send, our Foreign Office has never been so much active in that scenario. Well, if I talk about, just to give a case, that Europe commitments of the 170 billion is a huge eye-opener for the countries who question the potential of Africa's state. So the core objective of a European Union African partnership is strengthening the economic cooperation and promoting the sustainable development. I would suggest the following to enhance the economic relationship with African region, and that is for the Foreign Office. Right. So one is, I already told you, the commercial consulars, and second is we have to initiate. They will not initiate because you are the power. As I tell you about the sub-Saharan African, if the export volume we check with the China is about the 26, more than a 12%. It is with the India is a 5.65. Export with the South Africa is 5.22.
So other countries, other major powers are engaging with Africa, keeping in mind the potential Africa has.
Yes.
So what has been the trade barriers so far? If we look about, you're talking about the efficiency on the part of our diplomatic missions while establishing and enhancing relations between Pakistan and Africa. But when we talk about these trade barriers, what has been the major trade barriers? Are these the bureaucratic processes that has been hindering the process so far?
The whole of the Foreign Office, of course, the bureaucratic system, of course, the bureaucratic areas. Yes, we don't have the commercial consulars. You can ask the question to the, honorable ambassador. We are so much weak. It is not about the two-way process. We need to explore the market. We need to have the lowest labor market. We need to explore our minerals and mine and what they need and what we need. We need to balance the import and exports. So just to add on, the Pakistan can aid African state in the transfer of establishment of the SME as a revenue source of the both countries. Then is a rice and textile. We completely neglect that area about the rice and textile product can be exported to Algeria, for which it highlights depends on the European countries in one such opportunities. Then is Pakistan business community must be encouraged to explore the JVs. There is no JVs, there is no memorandum of understanding. I haven't seen any single point. So we are not working hard.
That's what Ambassador Saiba was mentioning, Dr. Hasnain, that there is a lot of potential and there is a need to enhance the connectivity and relations between these African countries by employing more diplomatic missions, and Pakistan is obviously doing so. When we talk about these economic relations, Pakistani companies and Pakistani businessmen are doing businesses over there, and there is a lot of potential over there as well. But when we talk about these bottlenecks and challenges, what are the major challenges that these Pakistani companies or businessmen could be facing while doing businesses in Africa?
So, Pakistan's Look Africa was announced a year ago. So, however, little or no progress was made. So, there are many challenges could happen, but we need to ask again and again to create a working paper and the outline drafted by the Foreign Office. So this is truly a sad situation. The Pakistan trade has stayed stagnant at $3 billion. So which is just $3 billion for quite some time now. Instead of growing, we see no progress made on so many potential fronts that could have boosted Pakistan economy at large. It was in 2017 that Pakistan launched its Look Africa policy, And since then, we have seen no
So
major
it was
progress.
basically initiated in 2013 and the policy was converted into Engage Africa policy in 2017.
Yeah, before the Look Africa policy in 2013 has no witness, and we cannot see any step or any signature step in that. So $3 billion is nothing been seen in 2003. I have all the stat over there, and I can even share the Chinese export over to the Africa or the exploration of the other countries over there. But it was in 2017 that Pakistan launched its Look Africa, which is appreciable, and since then we have seen no major progress despite the billion of the dollar worth of the potential we know that exists in the region. Sub-Saharan African imports for India worth is about 17,000, more than 17,000 US million. With the pattern share of the 6.98%, while the exports are worth more than 11, it is about 11,621 million, with the partner share of the 5.65%, which continue to raise. So Africa can be desirable export partner for oil and gas, one. And on the opportunity that has not been yet explored, I think there are many things that can need to do right if we are truly sincere about the gaining financial and economic benefit, because there are many exploration we can go and explore there, even as they have the low productivity, low wages, poor working condition they have, lack of social protection, limited access to the social service, and the many other challenges which is being faced by the Africans. So perspective is large there. We can check the Chinese have created this 420 billion and more than 100
of course.
SECs.
And when we talk about China, BRI is also an important project that would be connecting Asia to Africa. So we will be talking more about that. But Ambassador Naela, I want to discuss about what role Pakistani diplomatic missions have played in enhancing economic cooperation between Pakistan and African countries. Specifically, I want to talk about the progress after 2013, because like Dr. Hasnain is mentioning time and again, that this policy has been a failure so far.
Dr. Hasnain should know that trade is by Ministry of Commerce and the business people. Foreign Office is a facilitator, and we have facilitated. If your businessmen are not taking that initiative, the diplomat is not going to sell things. We are not supposed to do that. So there should be a clear understanding in those who make these remarks. It's not a failure, it's a success. And we have had a lot of cooperation. As far right now, you can see that there is this South Africa Business Association of Pakistani businessmen who are it's a joint venture that are working in different countries, not just the South Africa. So there has been development.
I want to talk about these areas of cooperation and the role Pakistani diplomatic missions have played in enhancing,
Pakistani diplomatic missions have played excellent role. We have created that platform for facilitation of trade, but the traders have to come. We have to have training in SMEDA, the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Authority, to prepare your businessmen for that. TDA has to play this role. Commerce has to play this role. So there should be a fulcrum for it. Foreign Office has done a great job.
Right. So, Mr. Shehryar, when we talk about economic cooperation, of course, diplomatic missions also play their role. But when we talk about business community, they have to be taken on board as well. And what are some of the key challenges that these business companies and business community face while doing business in African countries? And what could be done to address those challenges for creating ease of business with these African countries? Because we keep on discussing there is a huge potential in Africa.
So Maryam, historically the government of Pakistan as well as the business community of Pakistan has looked at Europe to basically sell their products, because Europe gives Pakistan the GSP plus status, and a lot of Pakistani exports also go to the US. So I would like to admit that we haven't looked at Africa, our business community hasn't looked at Africa, and now they're like looking to expand into those areas. So now, after the trade conference that was held in 2020 in Nairobi, it was attended by over 200 business leaders from across various African countries.
And it was organized by Pakistan.
Yes, it was organized by the Ministry of Commerce and Trade.
So that is a huge success on part of Pakistan.
So a lot of interest is generating, a lot of interest is coming, and now we will have to it shouldn't be a one-off event. So these trade fairs and trade conferences should be a consistent part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in partnership with the Ministry of Commerce and Trade. Then obviously a lot of exhibitions that need to be conducted. We can look at Nairobi, which is a business hub when it comes to Eastern Africa. We can also basically focus on our long-standing relationships with Egypt, and Egypt can be used as a hub for Northern Africa. And we have to remember that Africa is the second largest continent in the world.
Of course.
So it's a huge geographical landmass.
And it is being seen as continent of the future. So all
Exactly.
the major powers are looking towards Africa, specifically after Russia-Ukraine crisis. There is a huge potential in Africa when we look at the natural resources. So Dr. Hasnain, when we talk about the prospects, the current state of connectivity between Pakistan and Africa, how do you see it? Specifically in the context of BRI, Belt Road Initiative, that was aimed to connect Asia to Africa and Europe. So what is the potential, specifically when we talk about Gwadar Port, how this is going to link Pakistan ultimately with Africa? What are the prospects?
Seriously, China has recently noted the bilateral trades in Africa more than $254 billion, increase in every way, agriculture, pharmaceutical, I mean, you just name it, in every FDI possible. So Pakistan and China can create the possibility in Africa. We have the problem in oil and gas. We have the problem in the metal. We have the problem in the low productivity and the wage. So Ministry of Industries, Commerce, and the Foreign Office, yet they never come up with the meetings. They are not creating any format or any framework, including all the socio-economic challenges. But they have not listed the low productive. For example, there are low productive challenges over there. So we can move our industry over there in relation with the China or the CPEC management. So China has created many SEZs over there. Why not we fix our own SEZs? We have 9 economic zones. Why not we, Foreign Office or Ministry of Industries and Commerce, write up the letter to join the 9 economic areas? We have the Rashakai, we have the Bustan, we have the Dhabeji. Why not they come and join us? So in this, it is very excellent question. I must appreciate you on this. So, and Shehryar Sahib is rightly said on this this area. Even though what you just mentioned are two socio-economic challenges that many developed countries face, I must say Pakistan can turn this into the great economic opportunity provided we give a sincere try. Let's address each question. As you mentioned, the low productivity. One is the low productivity. We need that. Pakistan, if used the bilateral and diplomatic ties intelligently, can assist the African countries with the challenge by appointing technocrats or trade ambassadors. These experts can then assist as a member of a socio-economic assistance. We can transfer local human resource and technology as well. For challenges such as social service and social protection, Pakistan has a great national firms working that must be encouraged to establish their business in the African region, as that we are not focusing on the CPEC one window operation. Then how can you work on the Look Africa policy?
There are a lot of challenges that you are pointing out, Dr. Hasnain. How to address these challenges? Because we know about the economic situation of Pakistan as well. We have policy in place, but the implementation is a huge question, of course.
Since from 1970, the SMEDA is working so bad. They have not created, even then there is all feasibility, pre-feasibility reports are redundant, completely not in use. So they have mentioned all the bad and the no feasibility, it is quite 10 years back. Feasibility is mentioned over there. Then is a national productivity organization. They are not working as much as they have to do. Under the Ministry of Industry, there are 53 organizations is been working, and they are loaded over on the government, but they are not efficiently working on any of the progress. So how can we explore any of the human resource or the business placement areas? So this seminars and challenges, the business community are doing that. The Chamber of Commerce wanted to do that. The Faisalabad Chamber of Commerce, Islamabad Chamber of Commerce, they wanted to explore the areas, but Pakistan Foreign Office and the ministries are not giving them the safe and pacific area and specify the policy area and then create the diplomatic area.
Right. We will be talking about these challenges that that these business community could be facing while doing business in African countries. We have to take a Welcome back. We are talking about Pakistan and African countries' relations. The challenges we are facing, we were discussing, but Ambassador Naela, when we talk about the connectivity, increasing connectivity and increasing cooperation between Pakistan and Africa, what are the major initiatives that are taken in the recent part by the Pakistani government and African governments, different African countries to enhance this cooperation? Like you earlier mentioned about this important conference that took place in 2020.
And also that there is this South Africa Business Association in which representatives from the business community of the two sides are working together, not only in South Africa but other African countries as well. There have been many agreements signed with countries like Kenya, like Nigeria, like South Africa.
Cultural exchange programs are also an important
are also
aspect
going
of it.
on. Information
so
technology.
Let's talk about these.
Shehryar
Yes, I want to talk about these knowledge sharing programs, transfer of technology programs.
Pharma is a great export, as Dr. Hasnain mentioned.
Of course.
There are many areas, but they want scholarships in your educational, technical educational institutions to have this transfer of knowledge. CPEC is a good platform, but you must understand that Africa has been decolonized from French, British, Portuguese. All these countries, they still have their roots there. There are many countries that don't do business in their own currency. They have to go through French currency to be able to do business.
Of course. So these are the barriers.
These are the barriers because they are not even letting China move comfortably there. They are wanting to deter Chinese expansion. Although China is not expansionist, China is promoting it's trade oriented. They are working on economic diplomacy, and Pakistan is also, Pakistan's foreign office is also working on economic diplomacy, and we can synergize. But we must understand the ground realities in Africa to be able to understand the impediments.
Of course. So, Mr. Shehryar, when we talk about CPEC specifically, what are some of the major initiatives or the projects that could be taken place in these African and Pakistani border areas, specifically in the fields of trade and transportation, to enhance connectivity?
So, Maryam, Pakistan can basically view Africa from the lens of the overall BRI framework. So, as Ambassador Saab has very rightly mentioned, that Western and North and Western Africa is more francophone. So they speak French and they are more connected with Europe. Very recently, China has basically made a lot of investments in Northern Africa, Central Africa and Eastern Africa. So we also need to understand that Africa as a continent, because of its sheer size, it's not really connected within itself as well. So there are not a lot of networks. There is not even a lot of direct flights from East Africa to West Africa. And these flights take a long time because of the sheer size of the continent.
So what infrastructure projects should be developed in these areas?
So what China currently is doing, that it has developed ports in Eastern Africa, especially the Mombasa port, and it's also like supporting Eastern African economies by developing railway routes and road networks as well. So Pakistan has this chance in which in the overall BRI framework, Pakistan can connect the Gwadar port to the port in Mombasa. And there are also talks in developing port linkages between the ports of Algeria and Gwadar. And we know Algeria is very rich in oil production, and that's like one area where Pakistan can cooperate. And once we connect all of these northern African ports,
Gwadar port can also be used as a major hub for economic
yes, exactly.
trade.
So even if Algeria wants to look eastwards, Gwadar port gives it an opportunity to access Central Asia and South Asia as well through the Gwadar port. So these are like some areas where we can like start working, and we also have to like note that Africa overall largely is an import-led economies. So Pakistan, when it like focuses on Africa for its exports, I think that's like somewhere we can basically focus on. If we talk about our special economic zones, it would be very difficult for African economies to move out and like start investing in Pakistan. They would like want to like look inwards first. So these are the few areas where we can focus.
Right. So Dr. Hasnain, there is a lot of potential when we talk about these different areas of cooperation. But when enhancing the cooperation between Pakistan and Africa, what are the geopolitical implications of this cooperation, and how would the global powers would be looking at it? Because like you earlier mentioned that US is investing in Africa, India from this region is also investing in Africa. So what would be the implications?
Very important question, although it is a very pertinent. See, so if we check just with the trade with Africa, main reason of the low trade volume has been low level of the agreement of Pakistan with Africa, one. So second question was, we have to clarify this, that there is a very smooth reference. All the Chinese company for the oil, for the IT, for the infrastructure, special economic zones, $100 billion, and more than $220 billion is expansion of a trade volume in Africa from the China, and they are moving in a maximum way. They are maximizing everything. Now, the important question is why countries investing in Africa? One is the most significant level is the labor force in Africa is diverse, the rapid growing according to the International Labor Force, which is what we call it ILO. And then is the rich in fuel and oil. Then is this
rich in natural resources. There are almost 40% of diamonds are in African countries, and other major minerals are also in African countries. So there's a huge potential.
As I told you earlier about the pharmaceuticals. So we have the major flaw down in the pharmaceutical area. Why we are not working in the pharmaceutical area? We have to have the major market. Why we are working focusing on the India? Why we are not going to the 70 plus chemicals from Africa? So we are not using this way, this route. Of course, there is a smooth way. There is a preferential trade agreement. There is a liberate trade agreement with Africa. So there is no problem. We have to admit that we are not working on these areas. We have to transform in relation with the foreign office first. Foreign office must have to take this initiate. Then Ministry of Industries and Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Ministry of Industry and Commerce is being very, very deprived in that way. They are not effectively working and exploring the trade areas. So potentially what I dare to suggest that they must have
to there is a huge potential. So There's a huge potential. So, Ms. Naela, when we talk about the potential, what steps should be taken by the Pakistani government and other, stakeholders in business community to enhance specifically the economic cooperation between Pakistan and Africa? Because we keep on discussing there's a huge potential, and this is being seen as, continent of the century. Major powers are looking towards Africa. What needs to be done?
Thank you so much. It is a very important question. The African countries not all have a very well developed infrastructure. China is going out of its way to develop it to its own benefit so that it can get its business going. Pakistan does not have that wherewithal. So, like Shehryar said, we can use the CPEC, the BRI as a platform to move forward on that. We should have more joint trade committee meetings in which not only the government authorities but business representatives should also be present from both sides to discuss areas of mutual interest where it can be done. And there are a lot of areas which can be identified, and like I mentioned before also, there is a lack of understanding of Africa here. This kind of remarks that you hear is because of lack of understanding of the ground reality. We have to have good database so that if you are a business person, you want to start a business, you should know which of the African countries has market for that.
Of course, because these are 54 countries we are talking about.
Exactly.
And there is a lot of diversity in these countries.
Indeed, so it's not like you are throwing things in Africa just like that. Each country has its own rules, regulations, interests.
On potential.
And potential. So, we should have a good database in Pakistan on those countries, and these trade offices that have been opened should have full data on what Pakistan's potential is and which are the areas where your business people are interested. Like earlier on it was mentioned that traditionally our businessmen look at Europe and North America for their businesses. They don't have appetite to go to Africa or Latin America where there is greater facility.
And lack of understanding has been a major hurdle in this regard.
Indeed, and that's why we thought of Look Africa, that you develop that understanding. And that understanding is now taking place. So, in that context, very successful that now we are talking, we have a whole TV program on this. This itself is reflective that we are looking at Africa and we are looking to engage with Africa. Africa as a continent, and on bilateral levels also we are working together.
Bilateral and multilateral as well.
Exactly.
So, Mr. Shehryar, when we talk about these challenges and steps that should be taken, what in your opinion, steps should be taken by Pakistani and African countries to address these common economic challenges for enhanced prosperity and cooperation?
So, Maryam, interestingly enough, when we are having this discussion right now, the Minister for Commerce and Trade of Kenya is in Pakistan for trade talks with the Ministry of Commerce and Trade. And areas of mutual interest are being shared and they are being discussed. So, that's like one good starting point, that a lot of like other African countries, they should be like invited more, as Ambassador Saab has also like mentioned, for more like bilateral discussions on what the needs of the African countries are and how Pakistan can basically fulfill those needs. Some of the areas that Pakistan is already working on, it's like exports of rice. Then there is like also when we talk about challenges related to the balance of payments that Pakistan is like going through right now, even with the Minister of Commerce and Trade, we are discussing some sort of like barter arrangement so that the balance of trade can be met. And like all of these products
incentives
can be incentives are also given. So textile, machinery, vaccines, like health related products, pharmaceuticals, Africa is an open market that can basically get Pakistan's products. Other than that, they are high quality and very cheap products. So we also have to like know what the buying power of the African economies are, and that is a very good entry point for Pakistan to basically take forward. Pakistan's low cost products have a much higher chance of being uptaken by the African countries rather than European countries or American countries.
Of course, and when we talk about these areas of cooperation, there are common challenges like we discussed earlier, common challenges that Pakistan and African countries are facing when we talk about the youth bulge Pakistan is facing, and there
security issues.
Of course, the security issues. Pakistan has been victim of terrorism, and likewise in Africa they have countered. Pakistan has contributed in UN peacekeeping missions as well. I want to talk about that how could these kinds of initiatives could be taken to enhance cooperation between Pakistan and Africa?
So when it comes to like security challenges, as you've mentioned, Pakistan is one of the largest contributors to the US peacekeeping mission in all of the fragile states that are there in Africa. And that is an area where Pakistan has built a lot of like goodwill with the people of Africa and the nations that are like very politically unstable and suffering from terrorism. When we talk about Nigeria, they have been going through a huge insurgency by Boko Haram. If we talk about Sudan, like they have Al-Shabaab. So Pakistan has that capacity and the experience that can be shared by with those countries, because Pakistan has also like basically gone through a lot of insurgency, has the capacity to offer those countries and like build goodwill. And that goodwill then can be translated into trade agreements and capacity building of their forces, as well as connections between the business communities of the two countries.
Of course, there is a lot of potential. Thank you very much, Mr. Shehryar Khan, for your opinion and insights today. Thank you very much, Ambassador Naela Chohan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Hasnain Javed, for joining in today's program. In today's program, we talked about Pakistan's relations with African countries. We discussed about the progress of Look Africa and Engage Africa policy. There are a lot of challenges when we talk about Pakistan's relations with these African countries, but despite these challenges, there is a lot of potential, lot of common ground, lot of areas of cooperation in which Pakistan and African countries can work together for enhanced cooperation and prosperity. That's all from Game.